Welcome to episode 26 of The Liz McMullen Show. My guest is Erica Lawson. Welcome to the show.
Hi there, Liz. How are you?
Good. We're experiencing this at two completely different times. It's 8 o'clock for me at night, and it is 10 a.m. for you?
That's correct, 10 a.m. Sunday morning.
I feel like some version of Back to the Future is happening.
Looking into the future. Hasn't changed any.
That's good to know. What's coming down the pipe? What's going to happen to us all? You know.
No, nothing's changed since yesterday.
So, you have written very divergent topics, your novels, so much so that it's kind of striking to put them side by side.
No, you can't really.
No! Possessing Morgan is a thriller mystery with a nice little sexy copper in it. The Chronicles of Ratha, which I've learned a new term from Andy Marquette, which is a space opera, which I've never heard that word before. Soul Walker, which is a really fun sci-fi, which I can't think of a good moniker for it because it kind of is on its own. Mismatch, that you co-authored with A.C. Helen, is kind of a matchmaking love story. And
comedy romance, that one.
Okay. And then the next two I don't know about, other than Reflected Passion should have come out around now.
It should have. I'm in the edits at the moment. It's historical romance.
Ooh, I love historicals.
Yeah, set around the French Revolution.
Oh, very fun. We don't get to see that stuff very often. That's also actually really up Andy's alley. You should talk to her about that. She has a book in her head around that particular time, and that she was working on. She's also a Francophile.
Yeah, Andy was my editor on Possessing Morgan and the Chronicles of Ratha.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I know her pretty well.
Do you mean Andy Marquette or Andy from the Cocktail Hour?
Andy Marquette.
I love Andy Marquette. She's just like sunshine and lemon drops. She's just fucking hilarious.
Well, for heaven's sake, tell her. she loves hearing that people like her work.
Oh, sure. And, she's loads of fun. I've had her on for a review episode.
And I think Andy's going to the GCLS as well.
Oh, yeah. It's a big deal. She's going to be there. She has her own table, and she's welcomed other folks, especially people who self-publish, to come and chill out there. So that should be hilarious. Like, she was on a review episode, and we so went off script that I had to edit stuff out because we were having fun talking to each other. But I'm like, I don't think this is going to be as entertaining. It was over an hour. I was like, okay, we got to cut out this tangent. We got to stick to the books. And she also did a fantastic reading of one of her short stories for Lizzie's Bedtime Stories, which was she's just awesome. She's a big bowl of awesome, amazing. And just circling back to your books, I saw in the document you gave me that the sequel to the Chronicles of Ratha will be coming out next year.
Probably. I've already written it. It's with my publisher, and we sort of just all go into rotation, so it's a matter of when it pops up.
Sounds like roulette.
It is a bit. Everybody waits their turn, which is fair enough. I mean, we're all in the same boat. We all, want to put out one a year, and you basically just wait your turn.
And who is this with?
Blue Feather Books.
Blue Feather. A lot of good people with Blue Feather.
Yes. There's Mavis, Bev Prescott, Laurie Salza.
I interviewed her, yeah.
Karen Badger. I'm trying to think of all the other. There's a lot of new ones out. Hi Christie, we've got. Mm-hmm. Kelly Sinclair. Kieran York. So, there's a lot.
Lots of good women.
Yeah, and lots of varied stories too. They're not sort of all romances, which is good.
Yeah, there has to be other choices. I love lesbian romance novels, but I also like departures from that. Clifford Henderson is a good example of that, and also Kate Christie, because they've written things that may have romantic elements in that, but it's not the driving force behind it. So as a starter question, because I kind of mentioned that you go the gamut in terms of subject matter, how does that work? Like, how does your process of latching onto a story and writing it work?
Well, for instance, the story of Soul Walker started back in 2006. I just came up with an idea, and my beater at that time said, how the shit do you come up with these ideas? So I must just dream them. I write what I feel I want to write. I didn't want to how can I put it? I wanted to sort of expand what lesbian writing was about. I didn't want it to all be just romances. I thought we needed to get past that if we really wanted to be like a force to be reckoned with. Otherwise, you're just going to end up being in a class like your Harlequin romances. And I thought that there were so many stories that, and so many genres that we could use, and people just weren't using them, that was sort of one of the reasons why I've sort of been so diverse with what I've written.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's been an evolution in not only the form that the stories take, but also in the expectations on the part of the readers. And starting out, a lot of, I'm talking 70s, 80s, there was a lot about being closeted. There was a lot about coming out stories and thinking that you're straight, but realizing that you love women, and then, oh my goodness, I'm a lesbian.
Yeah. But that's what was needed at that time.
I think so. I think it's a reflection of the times. But my feeling is, just as today, where people want more from their stories, they want well-written, intelligent stories, not simply another love story to live vicariously through. It's just not, there's nothing wrong with that either. But in the 90s into the 2000s, which I used to call them the ooh-oohs, because how on earth do you talk about it? Because
we call them the naughties.
That's even better. Oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that one?
Yeah.
So
I think, back in the 70s and that, you had a limited number of people who were prepared to write lesbian stories. So, people were gobbling up whatever was there, and mostly it was about them coming to terms with who they are and, sort of tentatively taking that step out of the closet. Mm-hmm. Whereas these days, there are just so many novels out there that, you have to expand it, or you're just going to sort of drown in romance and coming out stories.
One of the things that I've enjoyed in the evolution is people who know who they are from the start. And they know that they're lesbians, and they know that this is what they want. There are things that are holding them back from finding love, or, being happy and whole, and whatever that tends to mean. And there's also been an expansion of genres that you're going to find, because there wasn't a lot going on, let's say, with speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy.
There's lots of werewolves and ghosts and things out there now these days. So it's a matter of finding a new twist to an old story.
I agree. And I like departures a lot, and I find them exciting, because these days I don't really have time to read anything that's not related to the show. So I'm always happy when I see like a departure from, the mythology, so to speak. In terms of pirate tales, R.G. Manuel wrote a story for the anthology on pirates. This is an anthology that that Andy had edited.
Andy did, yep.
Yeah, And what I liked about it was that it wasn't the typical salty, captain who's a woman in a man's world and is fearsome and whatnot, maybe, sensitive or wounded or whatever underneath the rough exterior. Nothing that I love Branded Anne. That was awesome. I do love me some pirates. But I liked it because the story was not about that, even though there was an element in there, but it was about finding home and, returning to a treasure that was people and not money.
Right.
So that surprised me. I didn't know that was what the story was. She did a reading for me for Lizzie's bedtime story. So it was news to me because I never read the stuff before I hear it. So I'm just as much a listener as those who watch the show.
Yeah.
Soul Walker is actually my favorite of the 4 books that I that I was looking at for this. Somebody put a gun to my head that I was looking at for this episode. And, you said that it popped out of thin air and that you had the idea. What was the idea before it turned into the novel?
Actually, around that time I was doing fan fiction. Xena fan fiction.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw that you had things under Aurelia and it was fanfic, but I didn't know what kind, so it's Xena.
Yeah. So this story hasn't actually didn't evolve into any fanfic at the time. Mm-hmm. It actually started out as a sort of a space, out in space, like a la Chronicles of Ratha. Mm-hmm. And we sort of batted around ideas with my beta about it, and, we were going to have one that could sort of like astral project type of thing. Mm-hmm. That sort of got put on the back burner, but that stuck with me, and it sort of just transmogrified into what it is. And I rather sort of the scenario that they're in, like the time and the way the city is, mm-hmm. to me, sort of very Eon of Flux. Mm-hmm. That sort of, low buildings rather than skyscrapers. And it's sort of just all... I don't really sort of plan my stories. They mm-hmm. just sort of... I'm very much a pantster.
I was just going to say, are you a pantster?
Yes. I wear my big granny pantsters.
That's hot.
And I just let it go where it goes, and it usually leads me to, to things I wouldn't have seen just thinking about it. So, I sort of don't even know what I've written until I've typed it out and have a read of it.
Can you give a quick little summary of Soul Walker?
Soul Walker. Okay, it's set about 100 years in the future. The government, it's sort of become a bit like a Big Brother type of thing where nobody knows whether they're being monitored or not. Or mm-hmm. The main character is the head of a Black Ops unit. The distinguishing feature of this unit is that they're all albinos. Mm-hmm. But she's a bit different from the regular albino in that her eyes are very, very pale ice blue mm-hmm. instead of traditional white. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the unit, of course, they don't completely trust her because they feel that she's sort of not a purebred. Mm-hmm. And what they're able to do is they're able to dispel their inner assassin, which I suppose for a better word is their soul. Mm-hmm. And these inner assassins can go anywhere because they have no solid form. Mm-hmm. And they do assassinations in the name of the government. Mm-hmm. And it's from there she decides that it's really she doesn't like the way things are going. They started out by infiltration for information and that, but now it just seemed to be, one assassination after another. So she's decided that she wants to leave, but no one in the core.
It sounds kind of like the mob, in terms of, they're the special black shadow corpse, and there's no leaving the mob, in the sense that there's no leaving that role of assassin.
Yeah.
And
and also her other feature is that she is a paraplegic. And she has a bodysuit that helps her to walk, but she wants to be able to walk on her own. And she comes across an article written by a doctor, which is Asher, and she decides that maybe this might hold the key to her walking again. And she goes to see her, and they find out that she has actually been. Do you want me to give away all this?
Do you know what I had? I have in the back of my head one of the things that is like, that's a spoiler, and I'm going to hold my tongue on it because it's just too interesting to burst.
Anyway,
but go on.
Needless to say, she finds out things that she shouldn't, and they're forced to run, and they discover a top secret experiment facility underground, and it's trying to think of the words.
Well, that's also, one of the things that comes out a little further down the line, so we can keep that out a bit. My feeling about Taris is that she had just been coasting through her life, and she had, as we learn through the different chapters, she has certain rules to live by that, she's survived by.
Yeah.
And she's being a paraplegic and also being somewhat different, even though she's the leader, leaves her on the outside of the world, and she just kind of coasts and try to, make as little amount of drama and doing what she's supposed to do.
Yep.
And so she's not questioning it. But the one thing that sparked her was her desire to walk again and to live a different life, because at one point she was supposed to kill an entire family, children, and whatnot, and she balked at that, and then talked to one of the council members, the father of the family, and basically, spared his family. And it's like these little holes in the tunnel or depression somewhat that she's in keeps on popping open. She's seeing more parts of the totalitarian society that she just doesn't want to be a part of. And things take up a lot of pace when she kind of forces Asher to give her an audience and talk to her and to help her eventually find her way back to being able to walk. And one of the spoilers, which I will not mention, has to do with that process of potentially being able to walk. And the more she moves away from being a trained dog assassin, the more she comes alive. So I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was the first book that I had read of yours, and it was just so unusual. And the soul walkers could project shadow self, and they would follow the shadows and then go up to the people that they were supposed to assassinate, and then reach into their chests and compress their hearts, so it doesn't look like they were assassinations, but they really were. And it was very unique. I've never seen, it definitely was born out of whatever, that moment.
my weird imagination.
Your quite unique imagination, and
sometimes scary imagination.
Well, it was cool. I loved the evolution of Rhea, which is Taris had named her shadow self, and kind of saw her as the twin who had passed away when they were babies. And so her relationship with Raya, and also her relationship with Asher kind of jumps the rails and takes her out of her comfort zone into a place where she just has to be on the run.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. And as things unravel, this big brother totalitarian society where they're just eliminating any dissenters takes an interesting turn, and you'll have to buy the book to figure out, how things shift and what is actually underneath the veil.
Yeah, I originally wrote it as a standalone, but I've got an idea tickling in the back of my head for a sequel, so won't be straight away, but we'll see.
I was hoping for that. I was hoping for that because it has the most dramatic ending, and it's in some ways a cliffhanger because, where do you go from there? The new role that Taris is going to play in society now that she's no longer an assassin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got some ideas.
Yeah, torturous, why don't you? I could possibly write the book that you're hoping for, but I'm going to tease you mercilessly. I'm going to tease your ass and make believe I'm going to tell you things that I'm not going to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, there could be a return of an old adversary.
Dun, dun, dun. I don't have proper sound effects for the show, but we
can supply our own.
Okay. Considering that there is not only a book out there, but that you've written the sequel, what got you interested in creating this world, the Chronicles of Ratha?
It originally started actually as a 7-page short story, which is like the first chapter. In the bar. That was all I'd done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry about that. My beta then said, you should expand that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went from there. And I sort of thought, well, science fiction, they're all the same. And that was why I decided to do a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one, a bit like a Han Solo type of character where, she was, just didn't sort of see the consequences of her action. She just went in and did it. And
she got snookered pretty good.
Yeah, she gets snookered all the time. She's hopeless. But yeah, I wanted to, just sort of added that little bit of tongue-in-cheek in science fiction so that, it was just like a big Saturday afternoon rollicking adventure. I suppose as Andy, christened it a space opera. Mm-hmm. A la sort of Star Wars. That was, you don't take a lot of that serious.
Yeah, she actually was the one who introduced me to the term. I'd never heard it before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. Yeah, I think she was the one that classed it as space opera. Well, she does them too. Yes,
she does. I actually read one of them for her review episode. That was really cool.
Yeah. So, I read the sequel's done for that, and I'm working on a second sequel. So
a third?
Yeah, a third book, yeah.
Does that make it a trilogy?
Yeah, except if I write a fourth one, it'll be the fourth of the trilogy.
Oh, I don't even know how to help you with that.
Well, I'm just taking it one accident at a time.
How did you go from writing Possessing Morgan to the Chronicles of Ratha? Like, cognitively, that's a big leap.
Well, I suppose I had the short story sitting there, and I sort of felt like I was all Morganed out. Mm-hmm. So I was looking for something completely different, and that was why I sort of... It's whatever comes into my head, I'm sort of thinking about stories all the time, so it's a matter of what I feel revved up to do. Uh-huh.
So tell me a bit about Possessing Morgan. Can you give us a little summary with a story?
Okay, Morgan is a detective sergeant in New York, and into her life comes a new DA, which is Andrea Worthington, who's a Southern Belle, and they instantly dislike each other. And then there is a big murder case with a high society in a high society household, and they're forced to have to work together. And in this one, I basically sort of it was more like a procedural police story rather than a sort of a thriller. You know, like they go through the steps of the evidence and chasing up lines of inquiry. But things sort of turn in a strange corner when somebody tries to kill Andrea.
Isn't that always the way? The butch likes the femme somehow gets in trouble.
Yeah. And so after that happens, of course, Morgan is closer to Andrea, maybe to protect her, but of course, feelings being what they are, she's fighting it, but...
Okay, a stupid 80s song is in my head about, I can't fight this feeling anymore.
Well, it gets like that. I mean, as much as she sort of keeps trying to push her away. But anyway, there's 2 or 3 attempts made on Andrea's life. One ends her up in hospital, and they finally catch the guy, but they find there's someone behind it, and I won't spoil anything else.
I know. We have to tease the listeners. You want to know what happens next? You must pick up that volume. So I'm curious. Have you spent much time in New York City?
When I wrote it, I'd never been outside of Australia. I actually visited New York last June.
Okay.
Yeah, so I took some pictures of where it was, where the 5th precinct was, and I was surprised that it was just how I imagined it.
Wicked. Cool. No, I asked because I grew up in Hoboken, which is right across the Hudson from New York City. And so my queer life has always been in New York City, in the Village and surrounding areas. So I'm always interested in folks who write about the city. And I had a feeling that you hadn't been to it, but not from reading it. But I was like, oh, this is in New York City, because I know that you live in Australia. So I figured, oh, these must be cities or streets or whatnot, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. No, I would say basically it's all law and order.
Dum, dum. I know, like that dual tone. I guess it's supposed to be the sound of the bars closing in a cell.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I suppose you'd have to say that the setting is what you would class as stereotypical New York, what people think New York is. So when I got the opportunity to go to New York, I actually made a point of going down to Chinatown and finding the 5th precinct. And I was surprised it was pretty close to what I thought it would be, even with the air conditioners sticking out of the windows. Yeah, so I was pleased. At least I got some right. I had done some research. So,
the air conditioners sticking out of the windows. How do your air conditioners function?
Well, we do have some of them like that, but most of them are now all internal air conditioning. Yeah, we don't sort of have the old...
Oh, you mean like central air? You guys have central air?
Yeah.
Same thing is true actually in Texas. My friend Adrienne lives in Texas, and she and another friend of mine is from Texas as well, and they were surprised. They're surprised at how many of our homes don't have central air, even though we do have absolutely disgusting, muggy, ridiculous, hot summers. It's even in my bedroom, we have the air conditioning unit in the window.
Well, when I was in New York last June, each day I was there, it was about 105. It was hot.
Ugh, it's just so stagnant.
Oh, it was unbelievable how hot it was. I mean, we have hot days here. We've had up to about 45 degrees, which is about, 112, 115.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a dry heat.
Which makes a huge difference, actually.
Yeah.
Because I went to Greece.
Yeah.
And they also have the dry heat. It's, the Mediterranean, very close to what it would be like in Egypt or in Israel or whatnot. Because the islands that I was going to, and Lord have mercy, is it different? A dry heat is so different because muggy is ridiculous, and we don't have anything to complain like in New Orleans where muggy is unreal down there.
Oh. Yeah, but it was like in Orlando. It was like you were standing under a hot shower all day. Yeah, no, dry heat. It's hot, but it doesn't. It's not that cloying heat.
Mm-hmm. It's just so stuffy.
Add breeze to everything.
So, I feel like I know that you try different genres, and it's almost as tangential as my brain, which is really hard to compete with. But the other book that you had me look at was Mismatch.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. There's some lines in it that I just can't even stand it. Hold on, let me find one of them. Basically, there's where is that? Okay. There's this woman, Clancy Fitzgerald. And her surrogate auntie is a matchmaker. And it seems like pretty much everyone around her knows that she's queer. But she doesn't. And she's fighting it tooth and nail. And one of the things that really amused me was the way that people in the grocery store, people on the street would chime in. And that is so New York. So I don't know where you said it exactly, but it's that's basically how it works. What's it called in Atlantic City when Ilya proposed to me? It was in a nice restaurant, and she got down on one knee and gave me the ring, and then different tables around us, there was a little bit of applause, and a couple different couples who've been together for very long, wishing us the best, which is just fucking hilarious. And because if you watch Moonstruck, it's just so like that. It's just it is it is honest to goodness, and that's why JD Glass and I have little giggles, and when I did her episode, we were trading lines from Moonstruck because it's so fucking real. So one of circling back to what I was mentioning, different quotes that cracked me up. Clancy is insisting to Carmen that she's not gay, and she said that you wrote that a woman was putting out sonar pinging noises. Which is gaydar going off. I was like, that's hilarious. I actually laughed out loud.
That one was AC's.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
That was excellent. I was like, that is awesome. They're so nosy, and people were, surrounding them.
The little old lady, after they've had an argument, she's gay.
Where exactly was this set, actually, now that I ask?
It was, I think, where they had the coffee.
No, I mean, what city?
What city? We hadn't said it in a city. It was a nondescript city.
That's what I was wondering. That's one of my questions. And because it's that whole giving your point of view, even if it's not asked for it. Yeah. It's very New York. And there's this lyric by Ani DeFranco, and she's like, I can't wait to go back to New York City where people don't hesitate to tell me exactly what they think of me. And I'm on board with that sentiment as well, being a big old Yankee. is that I hated, the false front where somebody is being nice with their words, but in their head they're thinking evil things.
Yeah.
It's like, you suck. Just tell me you hate me. I can work with that. But this whole BS, and there are two cultures that pop out of my head. I lived in Ireland for a year and was informed quite summarily that I'm not Irish, even though I think McMullen...
You figured that part out.
And they're just like, you're not, you're American, which is essentially like, you're nothing. You have no history. You have no past. And they thought they were so darn clever with the things that they were saying that Americans couldn't possibly realize that they were taking the piss, which is colloquialism for making fun of you.
Yes, we use that word here too.
Oh, I imagine so, because you have a lot of crossover with New Zealand, Australia, and England and Ireland and whatnot. That's just one of those things. There are other things that I thought were really entertaining. I learned new words. Snog, shift, and shag were 3 words that I was into.
Oh, I know shag.
Snogging is kissing. Shifting is kind of like making out and feeling each other up, and then shagging, of course, is sex.
Which is the...
So that was the one culture that ticked me off. First of all, the vehemence, and I know some of it comes from being abandoned, like the Irish who left during the potato famine and the people who were left behind, or something along the line. Well, that's just my little psychological philosophy on it. And then Southerners really get me. I was just like, they get my goat. Like, there's this one woman who was being very, I guess, hospitable and manners and opening up like their home, blah, blah, blah. But I knew the words that were coming out of her mouth did not connect to her thoughts whatsoever. You're spewing candy, but you're thinking foul. I was just like...
We're pretty laid back down here.
Oh, that's nice, actually. But the joke in Ireland and when I was traveling around Europe was that there really aren't any Australians and New Zealanders still in Australia or New Zealand.
Well, it's coming close to it.
Because they're always traveling. And the joke is there's like an exchange program with like the Irish and the English going to Australia and New Zealand and the opposite happening in the other direction.
A lot of Australians in England, especially London.
Is there a soap opera called Far and Away or something along those lines that's in Australia?
Yep.
I remember watching that when because I was in there 96, 97. I remember watching that.
You know Chris Hemsworth?
Mm-hmm.
He plays Thor, doesn't he?
I think so. I don't remember. This is quite a long time ago.
He was in Far and Away. Home and Away.
Home and Away. See, I knew I've always cross-sectioned it between that and that Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, that's Far and Away. Home and Away is the soap.
I knew I was messing that some way, but I knew you kind of understand what I was going for.
Because I don't watch Home and Away. So.
What exactly is that? So I thought Mismatch was really funny because of how intensely oblivious Clancy was.
Oh, yeah. Half of it was just stubbornness.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't going to be told by everybody that that's who she was.
She's like, I like these boyfriends, but they turned out to be gay men.
Yes.
And I can't see, like, my Goldie is hooking me up with all these guys, but I can't think of anything that I like about them, but that doesn't make me gay. I am not gay! I am not gay!
And I love that her parents are so, gay is okay, honey?
It's sure, come out of the closet, it's fine.
Yeah, the water's fine. The reason that we did it was because, that AC had cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, and the first bout that she had, we started actually writing a murder mystery, but she sort of wanted to write something a lot lighter. So we just did this, and of course the idea was it was just the more ridiculous it was, the better it was, She didn't have to sort of... and that was the first half of the book. She went into remission, and then she had another bout into remission, and on the third one she had a third bout of it, and we'd started on a sequel because she wanted to keep writing, but she was finding it hard to concentrate, and unfortunately we knew that the third bout was terminal. So we got about halfway through the second one, and she just couldn't do it anymore. So I let it sit for about 12 months and decided to finish it. Yeah, she was a real sweetie.
Did she pass already?
Yes, she passed a couple of years ago. Yeah. She started out with uterine cancer, cervical cancer. What do I mean, cervical cancer? And by the third one, they opened her up, and she was just rife with it. So it's basically just making her comfortable after that until the time came.
My grandmother, she was. This is so ironic because she was an intensive care nurse. And I didn't know this because I was a child. I was 8 when she passed. But apparently she was somewhat of a hypochondriac. I never experienced that from her. She always seemed like happy and whatnot. She wasn't one of those, oh, my toe, it's going to fall off. So they thought that she was just having stomach troubles. They didn't think that it was anything more serious than that. And then it turned out she had intestinal cancer. And by the time they opened her up, there was just nothing to be done. So, but we knew for a good 6 months or so before she passed that she was going to, which, excuse me, which
doesn't make it any easier.
Well, no, to me, it was a gift because we knew. There's some folks who get diagnosed and then they pass rather quickly. And at least for my grandmother, we had that last summer because she died just before I started school that year. And we had that last summer where every day we could tell her that we loved her and, cherish every moment with her. So I feel like...
She made the days count.
Yeah, I felt it was a gift. It's something that not a lot of people have. And, I mean, it's affected my life and the way that I experience things around me. Like, I'm very susceptible to tears if there's some kind of terminal illness involved. Anywhere from cancer to HIV and other stuff like that. But it must be hard to see a friend struggling that way. Yeah.
But anyway, we hadn't originally intended on getting it published, but her partner contacted me a while back about she wanted to get as much of AC's work out published if she could. So that was, and we were originally signed with L Book, and we were just about to get to the editing stage when Roxanne passed away. So we had to find another publisher, and Affinity picked it up, so that was good. So that's why it sort of seemed so absolutely ludicrous. That was why. It was because she wanted something that was probably as far away from real life as possible when we wrote it. It's a fun read.
Yeah, it definitely has that escapism about it, and a lot of the completely absurd situations. Like, I can't imagine an older woman contacting me and going, "Oh, I think this is a good match for you." Whereas it's almost like Carmen had to go out with all the football gear on and a helmet and just like be, no matter, what direction Clancy tried to take her legs out from beneath her, she's just plucky.
She's dead.
And normally lesbians are like, no, I'm not interested in straight women or women who don't know the fuck they're doing or who they are. But like Carmen's like, I got a secret and I'm not giving up until something happens.
Yes, considering all the grief she gives her.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, he's here. Where is he?
Yes. Or you know, they have a break in communication, and then it's a look who's coming to dinner, but the joke's on Clancy because both Goldie and Carmen were there.
Yeah. Or the waitress who was forever trying to get their phone numbers.
They're like, I'm either one works for me, you know. First she's like, well, if you don't want Carmen, can I have at her? No, you can't have at her. I don't want her, but I don't want you to want her. And then she splits the difference when they go there for lunch. And she's like, well, if either of you change your mind, you know, give me your number.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be just written as a one-off, but I've got a couple of ideas for a sequel, so I'll have to talk to Sherry to see whether she's happy with me using the characters or not, since she's got AC's part of the contract. So I'm thinking maybe if I do a sequel, might look at Carmen's side of the family, which might mean it'll be a little bit more serious. Yes, but I rather like the characters, you know, Max and
Max the Mack truck.
Yes, Bill.
I was dancing with a brick wall.
Well, wouldn't that be if you'd had a bit too much to drink? It was something big and a mobile.
Oh my Lord! And it's just so funny because it's sheer. I've never found. At least I've been in so many different lesbian bars all over the world. Never once have I felt it to be such a predatory environment. So it seems more like a Shark Tank than I would have expected. And I was like, wow, boy, is Clancy getting Lamb in the Woods, getting her ass really big trouble.
Well, there's only two of them, and I certainly wouldn't want to go to Juice's.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. It was like, it's terrible. She's like, well, I'm going to go figure, this is Clancy, I'm going to go figure this out. I'm going to go to this, you know, I love the music that they play, like the 30s and the 40s and slightly classy air. I thought that was interesting because there's not a whole lot of that going on in lesbian bars that I've seen. But I was like, boy, does she get in trouble. And what I find really entertaining, what was the red-nailed girl who was a bit of a trollop who was trying for... Naomi, okay. I thought it was really telling that Naomi called Carmen. You know, it's real serious when, you know, one shark is calling, like, there's this really big, nasty shark, and Clancy's really... Yes, and she's really drunk, and it was like a fire drill for Carmen. She's like, you know, what? It's like, holy shit! And so she's putting on her clothes, speeding around town. There's an emergency. I don't care if the cops find me. And like, all right, do I have the balls enough to go up and break this shit up? That was great stuff right there.
What was it about racing thoroughbred being wrestling with a 2-ton jockey that wanted her own way?
Oh.
Yeah, it was basically just for fun. I mean, it's sort of not supposed to be taken too seriously.
I don't imagine so. It's just so different. I was not expecting that, nor was I expecting... You know, Carmen had a lot of evolution. She went from the unflappable, you know, I'm going to let you come to this on your own, but I'm not going to let you squirm away, to, I have feelings for a crazy woman.
Yeah, I just leaned her out to the army.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's so funny that Clancy's mom and dad are like, bring her over. You know, it's okay to be gay. Wow, you've been on 3 non-dates. I've been on 3 non-dates. No such thing as not dates.
And she's keeping count of them until she actually calls it a date.
All right, this is a date. And I love that Carmen doesn't let her off easy. She's like, say it again.
Yes.
Ask me how to date properly. She's like, I want to commit this moment to memory. Can you say that again for me, please? Well, like, Carmen was being all balls out and making things happen and taking all the risks and really putting herself out there. So I thought, I was like, you go, Carmen, make her work for it.
It's sort of like rubbing it in, like, I told you so. Oh, dear.
Oh, it's a great story. So
yeah. Well, I've also got another one that I've been working on too, which is set in a retirement home.
Uh-huh.
And it's sort of the same sort of situation, except that the matchmaker is 4 elderly dykes in this retirement home. One of which has got Alzheimer's, and she thinks she's in the resistance.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
And one of the girls is the girl looking after them. Like it's called a retirement home, but basically it's her home, and she's got these 4 women that she's looking after. Mm-hmm. And the other one is a community centre doctor that's come. So it should be fun.
No, that's great, because I recorded a Lizzie's Bedtime episode with Lacey Gardner.
Yep.
And she has the story. It's on sale at Belle. And one of the things that she discovered, she was at a reading or something similar to that, and she said, "What are you looking for out there?" Like, speaking to fans and readers, like, what would you like to see? And there were quite a few women who's like, I'd like to see a story with somebody who's not a young woman, or in her, whether it be a teenager in the 20s or early 30s and whatnot, or even just about 40. People don't suddenly become asexual as they get older, and so they had wanted to see stories about, their age and whatnot. And she went for the gold, because the woman, the point of view character, was in her 80s.
Right.
Yes. And I thought it was fantastic, because she said up until last year, she's still getting frisky with her wife, and, was very proud of her virility. I was like, you go, girlfriend. You get down with your bad self.
How old's Lace?
Lacey, I think she's somewhere around, somewhere in the nebulous region of 40s and 50. I think she might be newly 50, because I don't remember if I mentioned this on the air, or it might have been another author. I'm blurring in my brain, but because one of the authors I had interviewed had just turned 50, and I was like, oh, you turned fuck you 50, which is a term I learned when my mom turned 50, which is pretty much after you turn 50, you can say fuck it and say whatever you want to say, rather than, being very diplomatic or cautious in the way. It's like, fuck you, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. It's like,
oh, well, I'm in that neighbourhood then.
Oh, good for you.
57?
Yeah, I saw that on your little summary, your little bio that you gave me.
Yeah, getting old.
Nah. Well, I have no idea, because, I keep on shifting what I perceive as, one of my friends is like, I think I'm having a midlife crisis. I was like, you can't possibly be having a midlife crisis, because I'm not ready for midlife just yet. I'm 36.
Not a pretty place to be.
No, I'm 36, and it's so funny when I go into hotel rooms or into certain bathrooms, you can see illuminated, the strands of white and gray that have, taking up residence in my hair. And I've got a lot of hair. My hair is down to the small of my back, and it's very thick, so there's lots of brown hair still going on. But I was like, oh my God, this is so funny.
Oh, at 36, that's sad.
I'm like, I'm still a baby. I don't know what you're talking about. You can't have a midlife crisis yet. It's just not possible. She's like, well, if I live to be 70, this is mid. I'm like, shut up. You can't be having a midlife crisis.
No, you got to get past that.
It's like, girl, no, midlife can be like, I don't know, somewhere between 40 and 50. I'm not on board for my late 30s to be midlife.
Oh, dear.
Lordy, lordy, lordy.
Yeah.
So, just as a little circling back to the end of our interview and our time together, which is so sad because I'd love it to continue onwards.
Well, you can always find me at Dallas.
Yes. I don't remember if we said this on air or not, but we're both going to be at GCLS, which is terribly exciting.
Yes, I actually went through, they've got everybody listed on their website.
Yeah.
So you can see who's going. So I immediately picked up your name.
Aha! Yes, I did. I told them to publicize that I was coming. I'm like, I'm so excited.
You should, if you could grab the stuff, you should try doing an interview at GCLS. You could get a number of authors at the one time.
Yeah, I wonder about that. You know, I record things on my laptop. I don't have anything against it. My thought also, because I made myself some business cards for the occasion. I have my little spreadsheet of all my pub dates, which Wednesdays are for Lizzie's bedtime stories, and Fridays are when I publish my review interviews or topical shows. So I imagine I'm going to be full up. Just have people write in their names and, next to the pub. Yeah, so I'm very excited.
It was just a suggestion. It's an opportunity that
I'm all for it. If somebody wants to, a friend of mine was like, I don't want to work while I'm at GCLS. I'm like, fuck it. If somebody wants to do an interview while I'm there in person, I'm all for it. And I'll just put it in my schedule as my recording date. Yeah, my recording dates are different from when things are published. So I was like, I'm all for it. That could be fun.
They don't even have to be long. You can just sort of splice a few different authors together and put it under the banner of GCLS.
Goodness, I don't want to splice people up. That sounds criminal. No.
Sounds like the basis for a novel.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I don't want it. It sounds like, sci-fi speculative fiction. I was like, I love the authors. I'm not going to harm them. I'm not going to sew them together. Oh. I really appreciate you making time with me, especially since we had to negotiate a 14-hour time difference.
Oh, look, that's no problem. No problem whatsoever.
So you have a lovely brunch because you're still in daylight hours, and I think I probably should eat dinner at some point.
Yep, it helps.
Yeah, it might be a good plan.
Yeah.
So thank you, Erica, again for coming on the show.
No problem.
Sweet.
We'll see you in about 4 weeks.
I know. See you at GCLS. Yay!
I love it. I count down from the time I get back.
To when you can go again.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Let the year go by until it comes up to June again.
Sweet. So cool. Alrighty then.
Okay then, Liz. It was good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.